Oh, hi, welcome to another Guns Contractors video. I thought I'd do a follow-up on the quite popular video I did a couple of weeks ago where I was discussing sort of what my thoughts were for my next machine and where I was thinking of moving to. And if you remember, I had three sort of distinct options really with where I went. I'd sold my backhoe, my 2015 3CX, with the view to replacing it with something else. And it was where I was going to go. Was I going to go down to replace the backhoe and get another 3CX or possibly 4CX? Another option was to go to a 6-ton track machine, and that had its advantages and disadvantages, which I'll quickly recap in a minute. Or of course I could have gone to the wheeled excavator idea, the sort of Hydra Dig or the Wackenhausen EW100, that kind of size machine. And of course Kubota had launched /Liebherr had launched a new kind of 9-10 ton duck as well, which was looking quite tasty at Bauma. So I had a couple of ideas, and I'd got some really good feedback from that video, which I thank you all for. And it sort of highlighted in some areas sort of concerns that I kind of already had. Some people were saying, no, actually that's not a problem. So it was really interesting to hear people's feedback, and I always enjoy the interaction. I try and respond where I can. And thank you for people who have DM'd me as well about either they've owned machines or they've tried this particular one before and they've gone over to another type, because it would appear that this is quite a common question for a few of us as owner-operators. So I guess the good news is I've made a decision, and I guess I need to explain why I've gone down that route. So I think it's about to start raining here, which is fantastic. I'm trying to load machines up, get out of this job, because we're nearly done here. So I just thought I'd take 5 minutes and explain my thinkings. So I was talking about the idea of having a 6-ton machine. I think that was probably one of the more cost-effective ideas, routes I could take, because the machine is 50% or more of the other two sort of cheaper to buy outright. Even if you spec a tilt rotator and a full package, you're still looking at probably 30 to 40% cheaper than particularly the wheeled excavator. Even a backhoe loader, yeah, you'd still be a good sort of 20 to 30,000 pound cheaper, depending on obviously the specs of each machine. But it's a significantly cheaper option, and therefore is very attractive. So, it is something that I thought long and hard about, and I thought, well, there's a lot of advantages to a 6-ton excavator. You can pretty much get them in all the places that, or do a lot of work that my current sort of 3-tonner does, where space isn't quite as restricted. It's just the machine I go to because I own it. And other people confirm that as well, and they said, it's taken a lot of work off their 3-ton machines, and I could see that, being a thing. I could see that working. And yes, therefore it's a very tempting option. Of course, the big downside was transport, and some people have said, in fact, a lot of people have suggested about tractors and transporting with a tractor. Well, very valid. And if you're doing farm work, that is completely reasonable, in fact. So, yeah, by all means, fair play to you guys who are able to transport your machines with a tractor. But it's not I do a bit of farm work, but it's not in all scenarios going to work for me. I also do a lot of construction work and landscaping, which sadly doesn't fall under that agricultural power as well. And therefore you have to run it, certainly in the UK, if you're going to run a tractor like that for haulage that is outside of agriculture, you're basically running it like a lorry anyway, which becomes hugely expensive. Tractors aren't the cheapest things to keep anyway. Tyre wear is expensive. They're not that fast if you're going longer distances. It kind of has all the downsides that you'd have with a lorry anyway. So to me, it didn't really make sense. And also I had a long think about it, and I thought, I don't really move that often, certainly often enough, maybe for me to warrant my own transport. So I could just go with the idea of paying someone to move my machine. Which again has its own downsides of time and things, but it's an option, right? So the 6-ton machine was a fair option, tempting for price, really versatile, run a tilt rotator all day long, just like I do with my smaller machine. Not this one, but my other one, as you know. And I think it would be a great machine for me, no doubt. But it had its downsides, mainly around transport. And that, to me, was just holding me back in a couple of areas. The other thing it didn't do was really give me any decent amount of fork use. So a lot of the time when I'm working on large estates, I'm working in one area, the materials are in another, and we're working over large areas, and I need to move materials, things about the job. And having the ability to run around with forks is key for me. I'm not just on a small site. I mean, it would work fine on a single house build, but yeah, I just didn't have that flexibility with the forks. And then suddenly I'm looking at then maybe needing the forklift again, which was kind of how I ended up with the backhoe in the first place. So I don't know, it wasn't as simple as I first thought. So I kind of ruled out the 6-ton machine based on transport issues and lack of ability for forks, really. They were the two sort of main downsides, even though there are some huge upsides. So we're not buying a 6-ton excavator. So the other machine was the wheeled excavator, the Hydra Dig, let's say, or it could be that new Kubota or the Wackadoo. So there's quite a few actually in that kind of 9-10 ton class. Even the Mechalek, it's an interesting machine as well that you could go for. So they were another option that I could have gone down. Just trying to work out how I'm going to get my buckets on the trailer here, because this landscape rake, which is my favourite attachment really, probably after the ripper. If you don't have an excavator with a landscape rake or a ripper, you really should buy one. This is my Dig Bits rake, and the Hardox tines, there's not a bent tine on it. It's good. And I've got one for the I've got one for the 3CX. I've got one that fits a 3CX, but I of course don't have a 3CX. So back to the topic. It's heavy, this thing though. So we can go down that route of the wheeled excavator, and I could see me running one of those. I mean, I see the way they run them in Scandinavia, and they're incredible machines. I really like them. Of course, the problem here in the UK, again, because we always have these restrictions for some reason, the main problem is we haven't got the ability to tow a trailer. And I know JCB have done a lot of work on this, but the problem is it's still hugely restricted. So the biggest trailer you can tow is kind of one of these, actually, 3.5 ton, which you could put some attachments on. I know you can get bigger 3.5 ton trailers than a plant trailer, but it sort of stands the point is that you can't do what they do in Scandinavia and run those sort of, well, they're not even farm tipping trailers now, are they? They're actually bespokely made, so you can dig out of them. They've got pockets for forks, they've got extra lights. It's all the stuff that we love to see from Scandinavia. But I can't run that here. I could off-road, which would be fantastic, but the problem with a wheeled excavator is it would solve, well, the good thing is it would solve the transport sort of issue. You can drive them down the road. They're sometimes not as quick as a backhoe, but I think the Hydra Dig will do 40k, so therefore it sort of is. But some of them aren't. It would solve the fork problem because you can run them around with forks on and move materials about, because I don't need to lift high. I just need to move pallets of stuff from one area to another, sometimes curbs and bags of cement, that sort of thing. It's just handy to have that fork ability. So it would solve that over the 6-ton excavator. And I don't work off-road all that much. I'm off-road, but not really in the deep mud. A lot of my work is pretty clean, actually. I'm quite lucky in that way. But yeah, there's a couple of downsides. One, cost. They are fiercely expensive. I think it'd be the most expensive of the 3 machines that I'm looking at. You're probably coming in around the 140-ish grand for the sort of stock, and if you want to, you've got to run a tilt rotator really on one of those to get the most out of them. So yeah, you're in for over £150,000 quite easily with one of those before you even spec your fancy trailer and your EMA buckets and all the fancy Scandinavian stuff, your light bars and whatever. And that adds a huge amount of cost to a machine, and I think it's like 50% more again, even than a high spec backhoe. And it's nigh on 100% more almost than the cost of a 6-ton digger. You can pay a lot of transport for £90,000 over a 6-ton tracked excavator. So they're very, very expensive. Clearly they have their uses, but it's a real problem. I think that the cost is a big barrier. The fact that you can't tow a proper trailer like they can out in Scandinavia, I can see huge potential for them, but to me it just kills it. And you can only tow a trailer in the UK, by the way, for highways maintenance use. So fair play to JCB for fighting that argument, but you've got to say they've kind of set it up for their Pothole Pro setup, haven't they? Which of course you could say is doing highways maintenance. You could put a couple of attachments on the back or tow a road roller. Great idea, but pretty restricted for where I see the potential, which is in that kind of Scandinavian-y setup. So cost, lack of towing, yeah, it kind of rules it out for me, sadly, because actually I think it could be the best actually compromise. But yeah, even if cost wasn't a factor, we still can't run them as I think they really want running. So as you probably deduced, that leaves the backhoe. Now, the backhoe isn't perfect by any means. I've had one, I've used one in my business. However, it does solve a few of my problems. It gives me that transport, the sort of transportability that I need. Very easy to romp about, to be honest, and pretty quick on the road. Especially if you go for the 3CX Pro with the 50K. It gives me the forks, and if I spec the right hitch, could drop the bucket off, I can actually lift even more with the forks, which would be handy for me with some of that tree planting we do and things, which I've done a bit of with the other one, but the bucket was kind of in the way, and whilst it gives you a little bit more forward reach, ultimately it reduces your capacity. So I think I'd go with the quick hitch. Also, of course, looking to use more attachments on that front end. So it solves those sort of two problems. They are expensive to run and maintain. That is no doubt. Certainly a lot more expensive than the kind of mini and midi diggers. But and they're not cheap either, actually, is another big thing. Let's face it, it's kind of 90-ish thousand pound for a 3CX Pro with a full spec, which I think I would want, and it's over 100 for a 4CX with the same full spec sort of thing. So they are a huge amount of money. That's before you get any extra attachments or whatever. But I think, and I hope this is going to be justified. I'll kind of explain my thinking why. So, trying to do a bit of strapping down here. It's a bit of a last minute get the hell out of here load. So yeah, apologies for the slightly risque strapping, but she will do the job. Yeah, so I have decided to go for the full singing, all dancing 4CX. That's the plan. And there's a few reasons behind my decision. Whilst I haven't got a lot of experience with the 4CX, I do understand they're a bit of a bigger beast, but I want maximum capacity from a machine. I need the best off-road ability it can have. I think the ability to move the wheels around, like with crab steer and things, I think is a huge advantage, and I can see that working really, really well for potentially backfilling long trenches, getting yourself out of tighter spots. Yeah, I can see a lot of use for the sort of different wheel steer modes. So that's one advantage. Second advantage, bigger wheels should travel over the rougher ground better. Now it's 4-wheel steer, as I've said, so steering lock I don't think is quite as good as a 3CX with 20-inch wheels, which of course I sort of had before, the bigger front tyres. The smaller front tyre 3CXs all run rings around it, but whilst I'm often in smaller sites, if I'm going to take the 4CX or use the backhoe generally, I have a bit of room normally, and if you can't turn it around, I've had to do it before. We have to go out onto the road and turn around and come back in. That can be a bit frustrating, but of course you've got dual drive as well now, which is a massive game changer, I think. in how these machines are gonna work. And I hope that there'll be a lot less of that kind of turning around, because you'll be able to run it a little bit more like a kind of wheeled excavator. That's my kind of thinking anyway. And I think with the dual drive setup, I have driven a dual drive 3CX, because they do those. I think it's just, they just don't steer naturally to me, because you end up with rear wheel steer, really. That's the problem, because your front wheels become your steering wheels. And then you're steering around in dual drive with the front / rear wheel steering. And it's quite a cumbersome thing. And you've got that front bucket hanging out there. I didn't find it that friendly to use. So the 4CX will steer a lot more naturally, because all four wheels steer, and you can drive it a little bit more naturally, I think. So that's another reason. A third reason with the 4CX, so we've got off-road ability. I think the steering modes will be handy, better, more capacity. You get a bigger front bucket, 20% bigger front bucket alone, which will improve capacity there. I mean, that'll be equivalent easily to like a 3-ton dumper. So on jobs where, you don't necessarily need to take a dumper, you can make it work with that, which I think will be a real advantage to me, and save me having to take quite so many machines or hire a machine. Again, I can see uses there. So yeah, let's hope. I haven't gone for the 5CX, which is like a 4CX with a bigger rear arm. I haven't gone for that. I think the reach and everything I was getting out of my old machine was perfectly good. So essentially, she'll be the same on the back end as my old machine was. In terms of reach and things. The 4CX I think is a little bit more stable though, so it should be better for free on wheels duties, especially when using it with dual drive. You'll be able to run it around with those legs up, and that'll really increase speed a bit more when laying out. I'd say, bit of curb brace mix, or just anything really where you're working a linear line. Even ditching, you should in theory be able to run along a ditch, legs up, and the 4CX will be just that little bit more planted. Certainly in my experience anyway, with sort of playing with them over the 3CX. And I've spec'd the bigger front counterweight for that as well, so it should be even more planted. It all helps, doesn't it? So yeah, I guess the thing that maybe you don't know is I've gone for the millionth edition, which is a limited run of machines, special colours, couple of little special features on them, like the LED headlights off the agricultural telehandlers, which is going to be brilliant, because the old headlights were rubbish really. The halogens, they just sort of light the front bucket up. It's no good, is it? So those LED headlights would be a real winner. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. There's a few little tricks I've got for it, a couple of ideas that I want to run and sort of push that dual drive kind of mix forward a bit maybe, and use it in some ways maybe a bit more creative. We'll see. It all depends on what the work is and what the jobs that come up. But no doubt there's been a big change on the backhoe machine, certainly from JCB in the last 5 years. The product's been developed heavily, really. They put a lot of investment into that, and I think that's worth changing for, worth having a go. Yes, I've got my concerns on paint quality, arguably a couple of bits of build quality. I just hope that my dealer will sort these things out for me. And it's always a concern as an owner operator. Where do you put your money, especially when you're spending that kind of money? But I am confident that I can get it to where I want it to be. Of course, I would hope that it comes to me like that anyway, but we'll see. As always, you will find out because I share things how they are. So that's what I've decided to do, rightly or wrongly. I've kind of taken a bit of a gamble. I don't have the work solidly for it right now. This is a machine that kind of tops up my capabilities as a driver and as an owner operator, really, again, against the mini diggers. I can always go and use the minis for other jobs, and tidying up around the edges and the sort of smaller bits. And the backhoe has always been my kind of powerhouse, really. It goes in and it does the heavy lifting and the big earth moving, and then we get the tilt rotator out and kind of trim up and do all the fancy bit with that. So I'm not going to fit a tilt rotator to it. I'm going to keep it standard in that way. I am hoping to be able to fit iDig to it. I think that could be interesting, and there's always the potential, maybe one day, I'd like to think we might be able to get some sort of 2D grade control on the front bucket as well, which would be really cool, especially when pushing out stone, levelling areas and things. But we'll start off, we'll work with what we got. I haven't got a huge amount more money to be playing around with attachments and bits like that. So I am going to get a tilt bucket with it. But otherwise, yeah, we're going to run with the attachments still got for the old machine. And yeah, a couple of new buckets just to replace some worn ones I've got. But that's all we're going to go for there. But she is going to be one of the, I think they're making 150, I believe, millionth editions, which is pretty special. Yellow buckets, yellow rams, yellow cab. They're starting to release them now, and I've known about that machine for a while and really had to take a plunge on not having seen what it was really going to look like. But now I have seen them, and they look really, really good. So I've not seen them in the flesh, but yeah, certainly seen some press releases and things, which looks good. And you know me, I'm a sucker for a yellow bucket. So there are a few things that kind of came together. There was a good offer on, you know, the JCB do a great job with their finance as well, which helps people like me get to kind of make the leap of a machine like that. It's a lot of money to spend. God, it'd be lovely to have that kind of money in cash to spend on it. But we do need help. But of course, they can package all this together, and as a business, it makes it a lot easier to buy from them, because I can kind of go one-stop shop and yeah, kind of wrap all these things up in one go, which has been great. So that's what I've decided to do. We've got an order in. I've actually had the order in now for a couple of months, because reality versus YouTube, you know, it was going to be a bit of a boring series if I spoke about this the months ago that I ended up placing the order. But the order's been in. I believe the machine is going to be made very shortly, and so hopefully in the next month I should expect to receive that machine. So yeah, got a lot planned for it, got a couple of jobs coming up to use it, and of course now I know it's coming, I'll have a lot of options to go out and try and find some more work for it, because don't get me wrong, it's going to have to turn a wheel. Some people are going to be able to park theirs up in a shed. That would be very nice, but not me. I'll have to go and take the paint off that bucket, sadly. At least it'll be yellow on the back. So yeah, that's where I've gone. That's what I've decided to do, and I have to hope a few things really. The work is okay at the moment, but it needs to pick up a little bit in terms of sort of the type of jobs. The jobs are good. There's been a lot. I mean, this machine's done a lot of work this year, and last year it did virtually nothing. So it just shows you how years sort of swing around, and different jobs need different machines, which is why I run a range. So yeah, the 18Z's been a busy old girl, and yeah, the backhoe, this hasn't really needed it at all this summer. I missed it a couple of times, but I knew the sort of work that was coming up, and I thought, well, you know, it was a good time to sell. Had a good offer, and yeah, so you know, you kind of have to sometimes take the opportunity while it's there. But it has been a few months now while I've been waiting, and there's been a couple of times where you go, oh, just go and get that. Oh yeah, I haven't got it. So yeah, I guess it just proved that it is still handy. And on price work, my machines don't need to do a day's work every day. They can do 10 minutes work and sometimes earn their week's money. So it's about getting the job done as quick as you can. And if a machine can move a pallet, move a bulk bag, do something, and you know, that's all it did that day, if that saved you a load of wheelbarrowing and shoveling, then it's earned its money, in my opinion. So that's kind of how I run and how I justify these things. But yeah, that 48 is going to have to turn a little bit more of a wheel than something like this, that, to be honest, costs about the same as the rear arm would cost on a 40X, or maybe even the seat. So not that they're cheap, and every time I buy one I still think, you know, it's a big investment they have to go out and earn. But yeah, a lot of money is going to be tied up in that machine. She's going to have to turn a few wheels. So, but that's what I've done, and I thought I'd explain myself. So keep posted. I will let you know when we get it. There's the potential for me to be able to go up and maybe see it as well being built. So we're just trying to tie all these things up. But that will be, if I get to do that, that'll be a hell of a video. So yeah, let's see, fingers crossed. But at the moment, yeah, I just need the thing, to be honest, because I've got some work and the weather's not going to get any better, is it, after that dry summer? It can only get wetter from here. Anyway, thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll catch you again in the next one. Thanks.